So I haven't recorded in about 2 weeks, and I want to apologise for that. This video has definitely taken longer to surface than I originally planned, and I said I'd stay consistent with this series. The truth is a lot has been happening, and I didn't really want to rush an episode just for the sake of uploading something that didn't feel right. I've actually literally just finished night shifts this morning at 6 a.m. It's currently 4 p.m. and I'm running on 0 hours of sleep in about 23 hours. I'm about 5 coffees down, and I probably shouldn't even be awake right now, but I felt like I needed to record this as soon as I was capable of doing so. I don't want to start slipping on the promise of pushing content out consistently. So the last 2 weeks have been long and eventful. I had loads of ideas about what episode 3 was going to be about. At one point it was going to be focusing on ordering stock, and then it was going to be more reflective. Then I wrote another version breaking down profits only. I've written 4 different scripts for this one episode, but this is the one that I'm going to be committing to. Just sort of like a reflective of where I'm actually at in this moment. So one of the biggest updates is the bulk order of 10 reworked Stussy sweatshirts that I bought. So they were grade A quality in mixed sizes, and I paid £85 in total for the entire bundle, which obviously works out at £8.50 per piece, which is a very comfortable entry price for something with a strong brand name. And so far, I've sold 3 of them. 2 sold for £18 and 1 sold for £17. That's £53 back already. And again, that's only 3 out of 10 of them sold. Just from those 3 sales alone, I've already made back over half of the money I originally invested into that bundle. If the remaining 7 sell for around the same prices, then I'm looking at roughly £170 total revenue from an £85 investment. So that would mean close to £100 pure profit, give or take, which is very good and it's very strong. And it definitely tells me something important, that these pieces can move. They're profitable, and if the demand stays consistent, this could be something I scale properly. So because of that, I'm definitely 100% going to be purchasing more of these in the future. I don't think this is a lucky flip. It feels repeatable. It feels like something I can continue to do and sell. So I also ordered a bulk box of 10 track jackets for 60 quid, which I was quite excited about because that would have been £6 per piece. Very solid margins if they were decent brands. Unfortunately though, the seller hadn't sent the order out. They didn't even confirm dispatch, and there was no communication for nearly 2 weeks. So at that point I had to cancel the order and just apply for a full refund. It is frustrating because it slows the momentum down, but at the same time it's better to get refunded than chase something that might not even arrive. It's part of the game. Not every deal goes smoothly, and I think there's going to be a lot of that happening in this documentary, and you're going to see the thick of it. You're going to see the whole head to toe of it. So I also managed to sell an old pair of Jordans that I'd listed a while back for 20 quid. They'd been sitting around for a bit, but eventually they actually moved. Sales like that are important because they clear some of the old stock and free up mental space. Even if the margin isn't massive, it's money back in the account and space freed up for better items. The more I sell, even slowly, then the more this feels like a functioning system rather than just random listings. When I recorded episode 2, I mentioned placing a bigger order with my supplier in China. That order includes brand new designer clothes, shoes and other items. That shipment should be arriving within the next week, fingers crossed. This one definitely feels bigger, more capital and more potential profit, but also more responsibility. I'll be unboxing everything, checking the quality properly and listing it piece by piece. That will likely be a major focus of the next episode because it will be very hands-on and practical. Okay, so one of the best flips in the last 2 weeks has been the AirPod Pros. So I bought a pair for £35 from a UK based supplier, and they arrived within 2 days, which was brilliant compared to waiting weeks for overseas shipping from China, for example. I listed them on eBay literally the same day that they arrived, and they sold for £105. So on paper, that's a £70 profit, which is huge relative to the initial cost. However, though, I realised I'd accidentally enabled an ad boost on my listing, which of course comes with extra fees. So instead of receiving £105 minus the standard fees, I'll actually receive £88.71. I mean, even with that mistake, that's still very strong profit from a £35 investment. That supplier also sells aftershaves, which are very popular all year round. So, I mean, I'll definitely be purchasing some more AirPods and most likely some fragrances too. Just sort of to test those markets a bit further as well. I want to be able to try a bit of everything, see if that sells, see what doesn't, and go from there. I did look into buying Lego sets to resell. I thought it could have been a decent niche, especially if I could find, discounted suppliers. I mean, I found one supplier selling sets for around 30 quid below retail, but most of the sets cost hundreds of pounds up front, so that's just too much capital tied into one item this early on. I mean, on top of that, the margins weren't actually that great once you factored in the fees. It might be something I revisit in the future when I've got more capital and flexibility, but right now it just doesn't make any sense to go down that route. So I've also officially started my investing plan. I've set up my own pie with a direct debit of £150 per month for the next year. The idea is simple: consistency. That money can just sit there and grow while I focus on reselling, YouTube, and all of these other projects. So by the end of the year, if all goes to plan, I'll have built a solid base, and I'll be able to withdraw what I put in along with any profit that's been generated. It's long term, it's stable, and it doesn't require constant attention. I mean, I've also started taking notes on TJR's bootcamp series on how to day trade. This isn't me jumping into trading, it's purely education. I'm watching each episode very carefully, writing down concepts, patterns, risk management strategies, and terminology. And if I ever decide to put my money into trading, I want to fully understand it first, not rush into it, no gambling, and just learning properly. So these last 2 weeks have been very busy and quite intense. Between night shifts, parcels arriving, sales coming in, cancellations happening, and new plans forming, there has been quite a lot going on. I mean, I definitely feel more confident now than I did 2 weeks ago, because now there is proof. Sales, profits, and systems are starting to form. At the same time, I am aware that consistency is what matters. A good 2 weeks means nothing if the next two are slow and then I lose momentum. But yeah, so episode 4 will likely focus heavily on the China stock arriving. The unboxing, quality checks, listing process, and seeing what moves first. I also want to potentially do a deeper breakdown of profit versus time. How much effort actually goes into each pound earned. But for now though, this episode is just an honest aftermath of what's happened. I know it was a little shorter than the last two, but I promise next episode will be a banger. This is episode 3 of the attempt, and things are starting to feel real.